Alright, finally, here it is. That Tomb Raider Underworld review I promised forever ago. Honestly, I almost forgot about it myself. But here it is. This is a short review of Tomb Raider Underworld, a game that wastes no time in making an impression. Just look at the opening. From the very start, with the dramatic explosion of the Croft Manor, it's clear that this entry is aiming to raise the stakes, but how well does it deliver overall? Let's take a closer look. This review isn't going to be super deep, just a quick overview based on my personal gameplay experience, even though I think Tomb Raider Underworld could be the best out of the Legend trilogy. This little personal review might sound like I'm picking on it more than liking it, but that's mostly because a lot of the good stuff Underworld has going on for itself, I already covered it in my Legend and Anniversary videos whose pro points are pretty similar across all three games. The stuff I'll call out as problems are mostly things that don't show up in the other two games. So yeah, it might come off like there are more cons than pros, but that's not really the case. But first, before I get started, if you somehow end up liking this video, go ahead and hit the like button, maybe even subscribe, and while you're at it, turn on those notifications, because apparently that helps the channel. Whatever, I guess. I was advised to start saying that on every single one of my videos, even though it annoys the hell out of me to hear it, and say it, of course. To give you a little bit of context, look at this clip from Tomb Raider Legend boss fight with James Rutland.
But Amanda doesn't know that. She's at your mansion right now. You better have good insurance.
Now fast forward to Tomb Raider Underworld. Already mentioned the opening cutscene, but one thing that I really admire about Tomb Raider Underworld is how it starts. It doesn't just jump into a new story, it picks up right where Legend left off, almost like it's the very next scene. That kind of direct follow-up, it's rare, especially in video game sequels. A lot of the times, even when games are part of the series, sequels just loosely reference the past. But Underworld commits to continuing the story in the way that feels right and intentional, and I really respect it. Tomb Raider Underworld is 17 years old as of the time of this video, and it only runs at 720p resolution. That said, the graphics still blew me away. For 2025 standards, they hold up super well. Honestly, it looks better than some of the games that have come out in the last 5 years. That's pretty impressive when you think about it. As a Zelda fan, I am shocked to say that Tomb Raider Underworld looks way better than Tears of the Kingdom. I know the graphical styles are very different, but for a 17-year-old game running at 720, it still crushes it visually better than some current gen titles. The reason why I've been picking on Tears of the Kingdom so much lately, it's simple. It's been my biggest disappointment of the decade, without exaggeration. It's so bad that I'm actually giving up on Nintendo overall. The soundtrack. I'm not diving too deep into the soundtrack because it shares a lot of the same vibes as Tomb Raider Legend, which I already talked about and loved. But those ethnic tunes really stand out and stuck with me so much that I find myself playing the music while I'm studying, working, or just relaxing. So the Tomb Raider Underworld soundtrack, it's definitely another pro highlight in my opinion. Last I heard or read, Tomb Raider Underworld had a pretty rushed development and faced staff shortages, which, if in fact this is true, it sure kind of shows on the cons I'm gonna talk about next. But take this fact with a grain of salt, as I couldn't fully verify if any of these development details were true. You can't replay missions. That really bugged me. Because if you missed a treasure or a relic like I did on my first time around, tough luck. You gotta start the whole game or start a new file over again to get it. That felt super inconvenient, especially since I missed a few things on my first run, which kept me from hitting that 100% completion. What I really don't get is why they took out the mission replay feature, which you could clearly do in both Tomb Raider Legend and Anniversary. And heck, even replay the mission right after finishing them, and even before moving on to the next. So it felt really out of place that Underworld, coming after Legend and Anniversary, just dropped that. Such a weird step back if you ask me. Speaking of treasures and collectibles, and this kind of ties into the last con I just mentioned, about not being able to replay missions when you start a new game. If you in fact decide to start a new game, all of the treasures and relics you collected before are not collectible anymore. So if you want to go after every single treasure or relic from scratch, you basically have to erase your save file and start fresh. At least that's how it works on the PlayStation 3 versions. I can't say on how it is on other consoles, but it sure threw me off a bit at first because some treasures or relics just weren't where I knew they were, which was confusing, especially since some of them involved puzzles. So yeah, this whole setup made collecting everything kind of inconvenient. Speaking of treasures and collectibles, another downside is that Tomb Raider Underworld doesn't give you any rewards or unlockables for finding them. Unlike in Legend and Anniversary where you could unlock cool outfit variations or extra content, here it feels like hunting for treasures is just busy work with no real payoff that kind of takes away from the motivation to explore and collect everything. And it definitely hurts the replay value when there's no reward waiting for you. It just doesn't feel as satisfying to go after all of those hidden items.
That's Shiva on top, and his mistress Kali is down below.
Now, about the game controls, especially the quick time events when you have to manually move the red reticle to land a headshot. Unlike the previous two games where the reticle automatically centers on the enemy's head, here you have to do it yourself. Because of that, it made landing headshots way harder, and in my own playthroughs I didn't get a single one. On top of that, since the reticle moves using the same controls as the camera, note, I play with inverted camera controls. Moving the red reticle felt really awkward and confusing. The way the reticle moved didn't quite match how you would expect aiming to feel, which just threw me off even more. Just to be clear, in my opinion, and as a personal preference, aiming controls and camera controls should not be tied to the same control schemes, because aiming and camera controls are not the same thing. So for anyone wondering why I'm fine with inverted camera controls, but not with how aiming works here, that is why. Let me explain inverted controls for those of you who don't understand why us who like to play with inverted controls preferred inverted controls. Something I've never explained before, but here it is. To help explain why inverted controls feel more natural to me and to others, it helps to think about how a real camera works. Whether you're holding a small handheld camera or operating a large professional one, or even those mounted on cranes on big productions, the principle is the same all across. When you want the lens to look upward, the back end or handle of the camera tilts downward. When you want to point the lens down, the back rises up. Same goes for looking left or right. Moving the camera to the right makes the lens look left and vice versa. It's all about the pivot point. That's exactly how inverted controls function in video games. So for players who are used to this kind of real-world motion, especially for those of us who have worked with cameras or filming equipment, inverted controls actually feel like the more intuitive option. Standard, normal, or non-inverted controls in that case feel reversed or unnatural. So I hope this finally puts the inverted camera controls explanation to rest for those who don't understand inverted camera controls. And speaking of camera controls, in Tomb Raider Underworld, I noticed that it often felt jittery and not very smooth, almost like the game was running at low frame rate, even though it wasn't. It might have just been me, but it definitely did not feel smooth and not such a fluid overall experience. But again, it could have just been me. The story. The story in Tomb Raider Underworld centers on Lara searching for Thor's hammer. But to wield it, she needs to collect Thor's gauntlet and belt. While I personally find the Norse mythology quite fascinating, the focus on Thor's hammer just didn't do much for me. Maybe because I'm not a big fan of Thor as a character. The plot involves searching for these artifacts leading up to the final boss, which felt a bit forced and didn't really add much to the overall story. Speaking of the final boss, Jacqueline Nadla, it wasn't Jacqueline Nadla herself that bothered me. In fact, I thought it was nice to see her return from the original Tomb Raider. Or Tomb Raider Anniversary.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a serpent to raise.
I was okay with Nadla as a villain, but the way the story connected her defeat to collecting Thor's hammer and the artifacts just didn't click with me personally. The whole storyline didn't feel as engaging or meaningful as it could have been.
All the world will be consumed by fire and ash. Ragnarok! The seventh age is upon us!
Within the story itself, there's one more thing that stood out. Not so much in the narrative itself, but how it plays out through the level design. While Underworld delivers some stunning and immersive environments, a few parts of the game felt like they're recycling content rather than offering fresh experiences. For instance, Lara explores Amanda's ships not once, but twice. The story claims these are two different vessels, but in reality, they share the exact same layout. If you were to play Spot the Differences, and if you're good at it, you would have noticed one vessel has one helicopter and the other has two. Aside from that, the repetition of replaying through the same vessel takes some of the excitement and makes the second visit feel lazy and uninspired. The final level also suffers from this repetition. It's filled with long, nearly identical corridors where Lara must travel through twice. Once to reach the objective and again to backtrack out, making it feel monotonous. And by that point, since you're wielding Thor's hammer, you can pretty much just spam attacks to get through with no real challenge. And that's already a flat way to lead into the finale. But what really brings it down is the final showdown with Jacqueline Natla. It's not even a real fight, there's no intense boss battle, just a simple platforming puzzle sequence with a few moments where you might have to dodge some of the fireball attacks from Natla, but other than that, it's uneventful and anticlimactic. So instead of ending on a high note, the game just kind of fizzles out. Speaking of the gameplay itself, especially in terms of how glitchy and buggy the experience felt. Just to be clear, this wasn't an issue specific to the PlayStation version, which is the one I played. This was not an issue on the Xbox 360. This was not an issue because the consoles themselves. I've looked into it and it seems like the problems were consistent across all platforms. So it clearly wasn't a hardware issue, but more on the result of the game being rushed and not fully polished by the studio. That lack of refinement really showed during gameplay and took away from the overall experience. Since I didn't record every minute of my gameplays, I wasn't able to capture all the bugs or glitches I came across, but I did manage to catch one in particular. So I just grabbed my phone and recorded it when it happened. This was the beginning of the game after Lara explores the manor underground and the mansion explodes. This is the escape sequence, which by the way, I didn't mention it on my previous con, but you also play through this escape sequence twice, with a little twist at the end of the second run, which I won't spoil, but still, you play through it twice. There were also several moments when Lara would unexpectedly fall through the floor during jumps or get stuck at odd angles in tight spaces, which disrupted the flow and added to their frustration. Many others have also reported various bugs and glitches throughout the game, ranging from the physics issues to stuck characters, showing that these problems weren't just isolated to my experience, but were more widespread.
What the hell was that?
One thing that really stands out as a con is the user interface. Strangely, there's no simple way to exit the game directly from the pause menu. Instead, you have to go into the extras section, pick a trailer or cutscene, wait for the prompt asking if you want to quit the game, then watch a bit or skip the trailer just to finally get back to the main menu where then you can exit to the launcher. It's a runabout and frankly an unnecessary process that makes something simple feel like a chore. What makes it worse is that Tomb Raider Legend and Anniversary, the earlier games in the same trilogy, had proper, straightforward exit options. So, it's not just a weird design in Underworld, it's actually a step backward. On top of that, the menu navigation feels so clunky. You have to hold the analog stick towards the direction of the option you want to pick, rather than just clicking on it. Same thing goes when moving through the sub-menus. It's unintuitive, and over time it just becomes a needless annoyance for something that should have been simple from the start. So, even though I pointed out a few flaws, Tomb Raider Underworld still shines with its stunning visuals and immersive environments that really pulled you in. The game's atmosphere and design make it a memorable adventure, and despite its rough edges, it's definitely worth a play for fans who want something a bit different from the previous titles. While I won't say it outright beats Legend or Anniversary, it stands out strong on its own and has plenty to offer.